And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Donald Trump doubling down on comments he made about President George W. Bush in 9/11. Could this dash his presidential hopes? Plus, does Vice President Biden have a special strategy to take on Hillary Clinton? Then we'll talk to the man credited with taking down Dan Rather over the Memogate scandal. And we'll also ask him what he thinks about the new movie Truth. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha along with Rick Unger. I have one question for you.
And that would be?
Will Joe Biden run for president?
I'll tell you what, I guess it depends at this point who you believe. There are people who I think are credible, who says that they have good source information that, yep, he's going to do it, maybe even in the next 24 hours. And I still think that I wouldn't put it past him to leak it to a few people, only to come out and say, nah.
Why would he do that?
That keeps the drama going. Gotta love that.
Yeah, okay. Well,
gotta love that.
The girl to your right, Mr. Unger, would be very disappointed if that happened.
I know.
Because she's the founder and executive director of the Accountability Project, and she's holding Joe Biden accountable. He better run, she says. Nomi Const is here. And finally, she's the news director for the Tea Party News Network and the author of a tremendous new book, Roar, The New Conservative Woman Speaks Out, and she will be tonight, believe me. Scotty Nell Hughes is here. Let's get right to the Daily Download. And this morning, Donald Trump, some call him double down, would not back off his comment that the United States was not kept safe under George W. Bush because of the terror attacks of 9/11 that occurred during his presidency. That statement has angered his brother, 2016 presidential candidate and former Florida governor, Jeb Bush.
His brother gets hit on. He's a loyal person. He's loyal to his brother. But his brother made some mistakes. His brother could have made a mistake with respect to the actual hit, because they did know it was coming, and George Tenet, the head of the CIA, told them that it was coming. So they did have advance notice, and they didn't really work on it.
All right, so those controversial comments have even drawn fire from fellow Republicans, including Congressman Peter King.
What Donald Trump said is totally misleading and untrue, and what your previous guest said is entirely untrue. Those briefings that President Bush got as late as August 6th from Mike Morrell, who ended up being the acting director of the CIA, said specifically that there was no evidence at all of any attack coming against the United States. Donald Trump now is sounding like a left-wing Michael Moore wacko. I mean, this is just wrong, what he's saying.
But it's not all bad news for Mr. Trump. He's getting some positive support, just not from those that will help him keep the Republican base.
What strikes me about the campaign so far is that it took a political newcomer, Donald Trump, to say something we already knew, but nobody had said before, that President George W. Bush did not keep us safe in the 8 years he was president of the United States.
Jeb said we were safe with my brother. We were safe. Well, the World Trade Center just fell down.
Okay, I'm sorry to say this, but strictly within the factual confines of that sentence, Donald Trump is he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
And that, of course, was stolen from Happy Days when Arthur Fonzarelli can never say that he's sorry. He goes, I'm sorry. So, anyway, George W. Bush currently has a 52% approval rating. Right. Yet, I think Donald Trump, even though I disagree with him, that you can't blame 9/11 on George W. Bush, is doing a smart thing here. Because Jeb Bush's biggest weakness is the fact that his name is Bush. And every time you remind people of that, it can't be a bad thing for him. What do you think of the strategy?
Actually, I don't think in this instance that his biggest weakness is that his last name is Bush. His biggest weakness is he feels an instant emotional need to defend his brother.
Sure.
I can appreciate that totally. He has to be a little more careful because he keeps taking the bait. I don't agree with Donald Trump. I never criticized President Bush for being responsible for 9/11, and I appreciate, just as I appreciate with the current president, that they've kept us safe from a major attack ever since 9/11. But he's got to stop taking the bait. You know, Trump throws this out there knowing he'll bite on it, and he bites every time.
Every time, indeed. No, you know what I find fascinating about this? The world is completely opposite. It truly is opposite day. In other words, Chris Matthews is agreeing with Donald Trump. and Peter King is calling Donald Trump Michael Moore. Yeah. Everybody's playing all these different roles. Meanwhile, MoveOn.org has a petition out that is saying to NBC and Saturday Night Live, we don't want Donald Trump hosting the show on November 7th. And MoveOn.org was an anti-war. That was primarily how they came to fame. During the Iraq War, they were the anti-war crowd, yet Donald Trump opposed the Iraq War as well. So now even though MoveOn.org is petitioning against Donald Trump, even though he was anti-war as well, while Chris Matthews has his back and Peter King and Jeb Bush are against him. I know, doesn't it make your hair hurt?
I couldn't even follow the question.
I don't know if it was. There was one? It was more of an observation.
Well, okay, to be fair, MoveOn.org turned into a different organization, and it existed prior to the Iraq War, and that it evolved and turned into a much larger
right, that's
liberal
when people began to notice it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not part of that petition, and I think
you're a Democrat, though.
I'm
you
a Democrat.
Agree with Donald Trump?
I agree with him in that I think both presidents, Clinton and George W. Bush, had intelligence that they legitimately ignored, and I think that there's valid criticism there. I think we lived in a different era that was not, we didn't expect this. I mean,
sure, it was unprecedented.
It was unprecedented. There was nothing like this in American history to that size.
So
but with that being said, they ignored the intelligence. And that is the problem, and that is why we are here today, and that is why Donald Trump is trying to run against Jeb Bush, because he wants to be the centrist candidate. He is trying to pivot more towards the center. And even though 52% of Americans approve of George W. Bush right now, when they're reminded of the Iraq War and they're reminded of Afghanistan, of 9/11, that is a reminder that we need to move on from that era. And I think that that is his angle right now.
Okay, you are smiling.
I am just wanting to get in here, because the truth, when you look at it, 52% of people might like George W. Bush now, but let's go back before, when Barack Obama was getting elected.
When he left office, he was mid-30s. Right?
The Hamburglar could have gotten elected if he had a Democrat by his name. The good news is, because I'm saying people hated the Republicans so bad because of what George W. Bush did to the GOP.
Collapsed,
the economy, the war, the immigration policies. The GOP was a complete mess because we were acting more like what we thought the Democrats were acting like. So, they did get exactly the great candidate of Barack Obama out of it. So this is a winning strategy for Donald Trump. You're either going to remind people about Bush, or you're going to remind them about Clinton and the failures of both. Yeah. He can't lose the more he brings this up.
That's a good point.
We're already agreeing. Look at this.
We got to stop this.
Besties.
I'm not saying a word. Whenever I hear Republicans attacking Republicans, I'm living.
Peter King is not, by the way, for the record, I think I actually agree more with Chris Matthews most of the time than I do Peter King. I believe that he's one of those that should be pushed over to the left more than us. He is not a hawk.
We got to move on.
He's a bully.
We got to move on as opposite day here continues.
I'm letting that go.
Scotty agreeing with Chris Matthews. According to the latest CNN poll, did you really evoke the Hamburglar, by the way?
The Hamburglar would have won with the D.
The Hamburger could beat most candidates.
True.
So,
Free hamburgers.
Trump and Dr. Ben Carson continue to rule the field with 27% and 22% of the vote, respectively. Carly Fiorina has taken a nosedive. She's lost 15 points since the last poll. More and more mainstream Republicans are saying Trump could actually pull off winning the nomination. What does your gut tell you right now, Scotty Nell Hughes?
Absolutely, and the reason why this is happening is people want to see action. They want to see honesty. They want to see trust. It's the same with the Democrats. Why Bernie Sanders is so believable right now, because he admits, I'm a socialist, and people agree with that. On our side, we've got Ben Carson and Donald Trump that say, you know what, you might not agree with what I believe in, but here it is. They're not hiding behind it. They've not been caught in lies. Carly Fiorina has been caught in several of her lies, whether you want to talk about business dealings or about Planned Parenthood. She has been caught and has damaged the movement. And so people are realizing that, says, you know what, we're going to look beyond just a great debate. We're actually going to look at the actions.
She's down 11 points among women. What would you say to a Joe Biden-Donald Trump presidential debate? Wouldn't that be the greatest thing ever?
It would be fantastic. I have no idea what to expect there. I think the personalities are actually pretty different. But, to go back to Scotty's point, Carson and Trump have been caught in lies, as of all politicians. But the difference is they have more to their candidacy.
But they're admitting it. They admit their lies. If someone catches them lying, which ones? What lies are Donald Trump hiding behind?
Just going back.
Carson has more to his candidacy?
But Carly Fiorina she ran on 2 issues, and she was very forceful about those 2 issues, and she was caught lying about her business record and her record with women. She was on the board of an organization that gave money to pro-choice women's groups.
Really?
I mean,
The global initiative.
You get the last word in this utterly
I don't even
bizarre
know what
segment.
to say. She's burying Republicans. I'm cool with it. Let's move on.
Okay, move on again. A vote. Share your thoughts on Trump's comments right now on President Bush by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. There it is. Coming up next, is Vice President Biden playing Hillary Clinton?